All right, all right, all right, all right, all right, all right, all right. What's going on, Elevation Nation Tribe? It's your man, God Body Sean. Another episode of Elevation Nation Conversations. I gotta stop. I gotta learn to stop doing this, putting my hand over my mouth. I got Invisalign in my mouth, so I'm going the real route. I'm not doing the BBL for your teeth. I got trays in, so we gonna do my real teeth. We're gonna get them all in order, but that's another episode. We'll talk about that another time. But hit that like, share, subscribe button. It's the day after Christmas, recovering. Hoping everybody feeling good, doing good. I'm glad it's over with. To be honest, I ain't gonna lie. My glass is crooked. I ain't gonna lie. I'm glad it's over with, but it's for the kids and for the family, so it's all good. But I was scrolling through the internet and I was catching an article about the trucking industry. And for those of you that don't know, that's an area that I know pretty good. Uh, I've ran a trucking company, had a trucking company, had a couple drivers, a couple trucks. It was doing great, for a while. Just like all industries and all businesses, it goes up and down. So there was some down times and some down moments, and we had to regroup and shut it down and regroup. Maybe even looking into getting into another area of another field or whatever. But we'll see how that go. New year 2024. But I ran it for about 5 years. Was doing good with it, making great money. Learned a lot. I've actually been in the trucking industry for over 15 years, and I never thought about trucking. I looked at trucking as just something to do that was quick. I wasn't really in the mind frame where I wanted to go back to school, even though I love to read, I love education, love learning, love knowledge, but I didn't want to get all that debt going back to school at that moment in time, and just wanted to do something quick. So trucking is one of the quickest industries that you can jump into and get your license within 6 weeks, and you can be on the road, either working for another company or having your own company within 2 months. And you can go, like I say, a starting salary for a trucker, like the first year, it's between 45 to like 60,000. And once you start getting your experience and your endorsements and things like that, you can get up there to 100 and some thousand a year. And then that's being a company driver, not even an owner operator. So if you was able to be an owner operator, you can definitely scale it up and hit it real good. Throat dry, but you can definitely get into the six figures, seven figures, with trucking very easily, very quick, and it's not really hard. It's just a process, and it's basically doing your due diligence, doing your paperwork, making sure your paperwork is right, making sure you got everything in order, making sure you do have some capital as far as for your trucks, your insurance, all your permits and things like that. But I was reading an article and they were talking about how the trucking industry is going down, and I noticed that and recognized that firsthand. I think during the pandemic, it was a mad rush, or just a lot of people speaking about the trucking industry as if it was a quick or easy fix. Where they were saying that anybody can get into it, it's easy, low overhead, low startup, and most of that was untrue. A lot of it was people using it as a try to get rich quick scheme or scam, with people trying to mentor you and show you how to get into trucking, but they've never been in trucking, or they were just giving you misguided information. The information wasn't true as far as what it costs to get in trucking, what it requires, the ups and downs of it. So they were kind of just giving you half the story. And during the pandemic, because a lot of the business and things like that shut down, a lot of people were seeing that trucks and trucking was an essential industry, and it didn't take much time to get into it as far as the learning curve. It's not like nursing or things like that, where it take a year, a couple years. So you had a lot of people getting on social media pushing that narrative that trucking is the new get rich way to build generational wealth scheme or topic or whatever. and a lot of people kind of bought into it. But I think when they got into it, they saw that it was way more than what it was cracked up to be, or it was way more involved in it than they bargained for. So a lot of them kind of went out of business and shut down and got into other fields. But I was reading an article about it the other day, and they was talking about how a lot of people that jumped in were kind of jumping out of it because the industry was just going horrible. And just wanted to read a little bit about it and check that out. But first hit that like, share, subscribe. Drop a comment in the comment section down there. Let me know what you think about. Let me know some topics you want to talk about. And on Elevation Nation Conversations, we always using everything we can as a growing or a growth tool, something we can elevate from. And I noticed, like I say, from personal experience, because I've had a trucking company, I've had drivers, I've had payroll, I've had expenses, I've had all of that. So it's a learning tool, and you learn from it and you grow from it, and you keep elevating. That's all what I'm about, is elevating and growing and steady building and adding value. So that's what it is. Elevation Nation Conversations. That's my Elevation Nation tribe. That's my subscribers and my supporters. With Elevation Nation tribe, like-minded individuals, constantly growing and elevating and trying to get to it. But the article, a little bit about the article, we'll read from that, and talk about it a little bit, and jump into it. It says it was hard to escape the narrative during the pandemic that there was a severe shortage of truck drivers who could move goods from one place to another. In reality, the trucking industry has a retention problem and has often struggled to find enough people to work a grueling job for low pay. But there are big downsides to the narrative that America doesn't have enough truckers, and they are becoming evident today. Demand for truck drivers has plummeted in the last year, and tens of thousands of drivers who entered the profession thinking it was a surefire way to earn a living are ending up deep in debt with no work. And truck driving is not for the faint of heart. Truck driving, when you first start out, you're lucky if you get a local driving position. Most of them, when you start out, they're over the road. You got to be out there 2-3 weeks at a time. You got to be away from your family, and it's not an easy lifestyle. Not an easy lifestyle at all. But it says, the shortage is just something the big companies make up, says Jacqueline Jolly, who entered trucking alongside her husband as their work in the construction industry slowed to a stop in early 2020. By late 2022, they were homeless and scrambling to pay off bills. Booms and busts in the trucking industry have been around since 1980, when the industry was deregulated and rates between set markets were no longer guaranteed. But this bust has been specifically painful because it comes after a high in which rates were skyrocketing and people flooded into the industry. What happened in the middle of 2020 was unprecedented and is still playing out in the market today. In terms of numbers of trucks that enter the market, says Dean Crook, Principal Freight Analysis at DAT Freight and Analytics. In June 2020, there were 241,835 registered for-hire carriers with a gross vehicle rate of 10,000 pounds or over, according to DAT's data. By July 2023, there were 475,371, a jump of 96%. So that's almost a double in jump of people getting into the industry from that 2020 pandemic area to July of 2023. A few things happened to create the rush of drivers. As global demand for goods created in early 2020 at the onset of the pandemic, the price of diesel plummeted, making it more affordable to run a trucking business. Government loans helped trucking companies survive the slowdown, and then by mid-2020, as Americans struggled buying goods again, freight rates started climbing. Companies paying $1.85 a mile in early 2020 were paying $3.10 a mile by late 2021. This motivated people who had never been trucking before to jump into the field. It also inspired drivers who were working for larger trucking companies to get their own trucks so they could become independent owner-operators and work for themselves, he says. But some of this boom was a mirage. Companies worried about shortages ordered more goods than they needed, creating temporary jobs for truckers to bring those goods to them. Sometimes companies would fill trucks up halfway and then send them to warehouses rather than delivering on. Wait. It says sometimes companies would fill trucks up halfway and send them to warehouses rather than delivering an order late, creating an inflated sense of demand for trucks. Yeah, I definitely know that from experience with my trucks. During the boom times, you would have had to be very bad at the job to lose money. Rates started plummeting in 2022 soon after Russia invaded Ukraine. At that same time, the price of diesel skyrocketed. Today, almost everyone in the spot market, drivers who aren't contracted with a particular company and thus can't add a fuel surcharge, are struggling. The flood of drivers into the market has now created a sure fit of drivers who brokers and trucking companies can play off of one another, driving rates lower and lower. Wow. Jacqueline Jolly lived this boom and bust cycle. At first, when she had her husband enter the business in 2020, she says they got loads that paid as much as $4 to $5 a mile. Diesel prices were as low and rates were so high that the couple decided to take out a loan and buy a second truck for $80,000 and hire another driver. Things were good for a while. Then their situation quickly changed. Diesel prices jumped from $2.50 a gallon to $5.99 and rates started falling. A load from New York to Texas that would have netted them $4,500 in early 2021 was making only about $1,900 by 2023. The couple got so behind on their truck payments that they had to give the second truck back. But even with just one vehicle, they struggled to earn enough money to pay rent and feed their 4 kids. Wow. Let me see. When the rates went down, that really killed us, she says. We were like, what the heck? We can't survive on this. The couple gave up their apartment in Poughkeepsie, New York, and lived out of a motel as they tried to keep up with insurance, repairs, and personal expenses. But the costs proved to be too high, and they ultimately sold their last truck in the spring of 2023 and returned to the construction industry. The same truck that they bought for $80,000 now goes for around $30,000, in part because interest rates are so much higher today. Jolly says the family still has bills out of our eyeballs, including $15,000 in unpaid tolls. Wow. Thousands of truckers are experiencing the same boom and bust. Wow. So basically, that article is basically just saying some of the same things that I was just talking about and the things that I went through when I was a truck driver. Thank you. My daughter just brought me a cupcake. But they basically are going through the same things that I went through, but my situation was a lot different. I didn't just jump into trucking when the pandemic started. I had been in trucking. Like I said, I've been in trucking for about 15, 16 years. But I tried the owner-operator thing years before. I tried it 3 separate times before the pandemic hit. So I was being an owner-operator from as early as 2014. And she was correct. Back then in 2014 or 2015, 2016, the rates per mile were excellent. The price of diesel fuel was very low, and it was not a big what they call it, access of drivers and trucks in the industry. So you were able to negotiate your rates, and you had some barter room so you can make more money when you're delivering your trucks, and it would take off your overhead. Your overhead is basically your truck payment, your insurance, your fuel, any repairs and things like that, and your licenses and tags and all of that. So after all of that, you were still making good money from running your loads because of the rates per mile was so good and the diesel fuel was so low. But once the pandemic hit, you had a lot of people jumping online, kind of just jumping into it. They saw the surface level of it, but they didn't go any deeper than that to see if it was really sustainable for them being a new company and with the rates and when the rates and everything like that corrected itself. And they found out once the pandemic hit. Once the pandemic was over, people weren't ordering goods and services as much as they needed and products. A lot of companies didn't need as many drivers as they need before, and people were back up and working and up and running. It was a disaster. It was a disaster. I know me myself. I had two trucks and two drivers. When you're a smaller company, it's harder for you to get contracts. A lot of the bigger companies, they really don't want to give you the contracts because they don't think you have the capacity to get the loads on time and uh, not have any issues with, let's say, one truck breakdown. You know, if you're a bigger company, you have multiple trucks and drivers that you can still get to cover that load. So it was very hard getting contracts if you're a smaller company. Um, and then during the pandemic, a lot of the truck parts were in short supply. So because people weren't working and they weren't making the parts, so when when it came time, let's say, like here's a story with me. I had one of my trucks broke down in Idaho or Indiana, one of those. But I needed a simple part, a part that was no more than about maybe $1,500. But the backlog for that part was so long that that truck was sitting making no money for over 10 months. It was sitting for over 10 months. Now, you got to realize, even though that truck was sitting, I didn't pay cash for it, so I still had a truck note. I still had insurance to pay on it, and I wasn't making any money. And the driver that was driving that truck, I had to lay him off. So that was just money coming out. No, that was just basically it was a liability. It was bringing in no money, but it was still costing me money. And it only got worse once my second truck went down, and having a hard time finding parts, for trucks and things like that, and getting them repaired. It was a disaster. So the trucking industry will always be needed because everything is moved by trucks. Everything is moved by trucks, but right now with the diesel prices so high, the rates are really really low because there's a saturation in the market of drivers and trucks. Right now is not a good time to jump into the game. The cost is just astronomical. It's even getting to the point where now the big companies, they're slowing down hiring drivers or they're cutting their pay. They're not even paying drivers the way they were paying them, you know, 6, 7, 8 years ago. It's not the same. So the trucking industry, it is a good industry to jump into and get in. It's fairly easy if you know the process and you know the details of it. But right now, it's just not a time for it. The prices are just crazy all around. Um, and right now, I'm just kind of sitting back, waiting to see how it goes in the next year or so, to see if I'll jump back into it and ramp back up. But when I was up and running and I was running good, I had months where I was seeing 30, 40,000 profit. My business bank account, it had 80, 70, 80, 90,000 going in and out of it at a time, with like going in and coming out, you know, per month. I had some like one of my best years, and I think this was when I had one truck, and I got my second truck kind of like halfway through that year. I grossed like 350, 400,000, and that's without me driving. I didn't drive my trucks no more. I didn't want to drive, so I still had drivers that I was paying an excellent salary. My drivers were making like 70,000, 65,000 a year. So there are times where you can make excellent and great money. Hit that like, share, subscribe button. Hold on, we got a text message coming through. Mm, okay, excuse me about that. But where was I at? Um, yeah. But the trucking industry, like I say, it has its ups and its downs. It has its highs and its lows. But it's always a market that's going to be needed, and there's going to be a need for it. But right now, with just coming out of the pandemic and things kind of ramping back up, a lot of people aren't ordering or spending money how they used to. A lot of companies aren't ordering products the way they were, and the prices of diesel are very high right now. So right now is the time to kind of sit back, sit on your money, kind of watch it. Watch the market and see how it turns out, see how it goes. Maybe look for different avenues of generating income. I know one of the avenues that I had was when my truck was down. I took my trailer and I put my trailer on a rental site so other people could rent my trailer and I could make money off the trailer just by them, using my trailer. And that did very well for a while, But yeah, I was reading this article and I was like, yeah, wow, yeah. I know this from personal experience. It kind of touched home and hit home, and yeah, it was going crazy. So definitely, if you're getting into the trucking industry, make sure you got your ducks lined up, you got your numbers correct, you got your numbers in order, so you can see, how things are gonna go. Make sure you have a game plan, and make sure you're ready to live that lifestyle. At least till you stack some money and you're in a position where you have a surplus of cash before you start hiring drivers and buying more trucks and buying new trucks, because it can run you into debt and you can't get into a lot of trouble. So that's my take on it from experience. We'll definitely talk more about trucking in some later videos and things like that. Because, like I say, I've been in it for a long time. I'm actually in the process of becoming a teacher. Going to start teaching drivers and start a program and mentor. I'm going to mentor others. How to get into the game, what's the process, and what you need to do. So we'll definitely tap into it at a later date a little bit more. But hit that like, share, subscribe button. Just want to tap in with y'all real quick. Talk about the trucking industry and the highs and lows of it. But it's very deep. It's a lot that goes into it. So it's definitely not for the faint of heart. But drop a comment in the section down there, and I'm gonna check y'all again on the next one, on the other side. All right, all right, all right. It's your man God Body Sean, Elevation Nation Conversations. We're gonna take something from this, take something from the bad. We're gonna add it to ours, take the good from it, and see how we can use it and utilize it to elevate and grow and continue building. So, take from this one is learn the industry before you get into it. Do your work, do your due diligence before you jump into it, and make sure you have a plan B. It's always good, So we'll salute to y'all. We're gonna check y'all out on the next one, and we out. One.